Every reason is the right reason to Orange Theory. You want to supercharge your metabolism to burn more calories? You need more energy to keep up with the kids? Or you're working on what your daughter calls a revenge bod? Whatever reason works for you, works for Orange Theory. Visit orangetheory.com to book your free class today. At participating studios only. Terms and conditions apply.
ERFM, part of the IOM radio network.
IPMNation.com.
Well, I've always said a contested convention would be a political junkie's wet dream. So thank you, Wisconsin. Thank you very, very much. It is Tuesday, April 5th, 2016, 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone. From the Uptown Auto Repair Studio, Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
African Americans love me.
Our next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing.
Let's build a wall and pretend that this all is just honesty.
Stop political correctness.
Donald Trump is so blind, playing out right with all of his bigotry.
We're ready to start shooting.
Disparaging women is something that Donald does happily.
In the fat, ugly face of us.
Also, if you like World War II, I should hope that you're ready for 3.
I would bomb the shit out of you.
It's not like Trump has strong Muslims all bad only once or twice.
Muslims entering the United States.
Or ever mention Mexican people in a favorable light.
They're rapists. Build a great wall.
No bull should be fancy, he wants better safety, but only for
America,
once.
great
But
again.
what to do when his act gets no more chances?
Nobody wants to be in business with him.
Is it too late for Trump to say sorry?
I know the Muslims. We have big problems.
Cause our friends is Donald Trump at NBC.
NBC hates me.
Is it too late for Trump to say sorry?
I'm a very smart person.
Miss Universe was taken down. Is it too late to say sorry now?
If you get to know him more and more, you'll have even more respect.
Bong, 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 bing, bing, bing.
Remember when the worst we knew about Trump was that awful hair?
It's actually my hair, you know.
The things we've learned should keep him out of the Oval Office chair.
Sideshows and carnival bars.
Or really any office chair that just really would not be fair.
You have to take out their
Can
family.
we all just say the word? He's a
His
fascist.
candidacy, which is a movement.
Is it too late for Trump to say sorry?
The whites don't get any nominations with BET.
For reminding people of Nazis.
Bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing.
Is it too late for Trump to say sorry?
I like people that weren't captured,
Is
okay?
it too deep to just disavow? Is it too late to say sorry
They're all
now?
drug
What
dealers.
happens when you offend the whole country?
They're stupid people.
And your business still has to make money.
Bong, bong, bing, bing, bong.
Is it too late for Trump to say sorry?
I could shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any
Yeah,
votes.
all this shit came out his mouth. Think it's too late to say sorry now.
Nobody builds walls better than me, believe me.
Bing, bing,
As you know, with radical Islam, we have a tremendous problem.
bing, bing.
How do you find out if they're Muslims?
You have a surveillance system, and you have papers, and you have documents, and you go through a process. And the least
racist.
I'm sorry.
There you have it. The great, let's see, I want to make sure I got the guy's name who did that song parody of Justin Bieber's Sorry, dedicated to Donald Trump. Peter Coffin is his name. So if you want to see the video for that, it is up on YouTube. And you can find that pretty easily. That's where I found it. So welcome to the show, Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live tonight from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire. Of course, we're 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 2 at 11 p.m. Eastern, the IPM Nation live station, powered by Ambit Energy. Learn how to save on your energy bills. Go to ipmnation.ambitrabbit.com. And, of course, Tuesdays and Thursday nights, we have the honor and privilege of also being carried on OTR FM, the premium channel on the Ohm Times radio network. So it's a Tuesday night, and so here we are. So hello to all our listeners on OTR FM. Very glad to have you with us. Let's see, a couple programming notes before we get into what's turned out to be a very, very significant day in the presidential campaign, the 2016 campaign. But if you didn't hear last night's show, of course, Monday nights were strictly on IPM Nation 2, and we had a guest. My guest was Ed Opperman, host of the Opperman Report, which we've just added to the roster of shows on IPM Nation. The Opperman Report, which is Fridays and Saturdays, live both nights beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that was a really interesting conversation. So if you didn't get a chance to tune in, I would, don't do it right now. Stay with me live. But afterward, if you go to ipmnation.com/MCU live, where we do archive the shows, you can take a listen to that. Really interesting. It's funny because when Ed and I were communicating on Facebook and setting up, the logistics of his appearance on the show, he joined me via Skype from, I think he's in Las Vegas. We were kind of talking about, he gets up early. He gets up at like 4 a.m. So, we were trying to figure out, maybe he'd come on for part of the show or, if he didn't want to stick around for the whole thing, it's an hour show. I told him, I said, we keep it loose. Sometimes I'll have a guest on at the top of the show, and we'll keep the guest on for as long as it's interesting. And, if at some point when the conversation seems like it's winding down, I'll cut you loose, and then I'll go on to other things. But I ended up keeping him for the whole show. I don't think he minded. It seemed like he really enjoyed himself. But it was just such an interesting conversation. Very, very interesting guy, private investigator. He's been involved in a lot of high-profile cases, quite a few. So it was really an interesting conversation, and I'm really glad that we're going to be carrying his show on IPM Nation starting this weekend. In fact, one of the things we discussed was OJ, the O.J. Simpson trial, which, again, as a private investigator, he was...
Want to stop engine problems before they start? Pick up a can of Seafoam Motor Treatment. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Trusted by millions every day, Seafoam is safe and easy to use in any engine. Just pour it in your fuel tank. Make the proven choice with Seafoam. Available everywhere automotive products are sold. Seafoam!
He was somewhat involved in that, and... I'll tell you what, like a lot of people, I've always kind of operated under the assumption, even though I try to adhere to the principle of innocent until proven guilty, and I try not to leap to conclusions or judge anyone's guilt, until they've had their due process, and then if they're found not guilty, they're found not guilty. But OJ's always kind of been an exception for me in that regard, as I think for a lot of people, a lot of us just always have kind of assumed that he did it and got away with it. But I have to admit, talking with Ed Opperman last night, he did put a little bit of doubt in my mind about OJ's guilt. So anyway, just a really interesting conversation. So I encourage you to take a listen to that. It's up at ipmnation.com/MCU live. Let's see. Tomorrow, Wednesday, let's see, at 1 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation, of course, you can watch Ward 13 with John Hopwood. I did receive a text from John earlier because I do sit in and kind of co-host with him most weeks, more often than not. He texted me tonight. He said, come on tomorrow if you want. We are going to talk Panama Papers with a professor from Mexico City. So that should be very, very interesting. This is a story just breaking. In fact, probably won't get to it tonight on the show, but BBC.com put up just a few hours ago a big article on it that you can find on their site. So I look forward to learning more about that. And John, I got to tell you, he knows a lot of very interesting people. I don't know who this professor from Mexico City is, but just having gotten to know John Hopwood, I'm not surprised that he knows a professor in Mexico City who will have some some interesting insight on this. He knows a lot of interesting people. So, and he brings on a lot of interesting guests. So I look forward to that. And then, of course, immediately after that, at 2 p.m. Eastern, will be the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. I don't have a guest booked for this week, or at least not yet, unless something pops up at the last minute. But I can usually talk John into sticking around for another hour, and he and I can talk about whatever. There's plenty to talk about going on in the world of politics. If you would like to talk about anything, feel free to call into the show tonight. We do have an open phone line, 617-917-4IPM. That's IPM as in IPM Nation, 617-417-4476 for the alphanumerically challenged. You can call us. You can text us. If you'd rather not call, you can send me a contact request if you'd like to enter the conversation via Skype at IPM Nation. And, of course, we do have the chat room open at IPMNation.com/live2. So you can opine in the chat room as well. You can tweet me at Matt Connarton. You can like the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page if you haven't done so already and post on there. So there is no shortage of ways that you can communicate during or even when the show's not on. So you've got plenty of options. And like I said, very, very big day. 2 big victories tonight. Ted Cruz wallops, as Politico put it, Trump in Wisconsin, in the Wisconsin primary. And Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton. The big story seems to be Cruz, or the bigger story of the two. They're both really significant, but the bigger story of the two would seem to be Cruz's victory over Trump, because, of course, Trump, the front runner, the clear front runner, and the presumptive nominee, but maybe not. This really kind of makes it very likely that we will have a contested convention, which I'm obviously very excited about. And Bernie Sanders beating Hillary in Wisconsin, though, that is also very significant. Less significant because they've pretty much already figured out, and they're not even being shy about it, how they're going to make sure that that Hillary is the nominee. You know, the way they've manipulated the delegates and, you know, the super delegates and all that. But it's still fun watching. It's fun watching Bernie make her sweat it out. But Cruz's victory in Wisconsin opens up all kinds of tantalizing possibilities. We got to take a break, but we'll get into all of it when we come back. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at Om Times Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. Om Times Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Connarton Unleashed. We're live on this Tuesday evening, coming to you from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in glorious Manchester.
Want to stop engine problems before they start? Pick up a can of Seafoam Motor Treatment. Seafoam helps engines start easier, run smoother, and last longer. Trusted by millions every day, Seafoam is safe and easy to use in any engine. Just pour it in your fuel tank. Make the proven choice with Seafoam. Available everywhere automotive products are sold. Seafoam!
New Hampshire. Manchester, New Hampshire, by the way, where this morning it was, I was up and out. I've been getting up really early because we have a new show that we've been carrying. I'll give this a little plug quickly. Of course, All Natural Being, hosted by the great Brian Browdy, which is actually the current #1 show on IPM Nation and became so almost immediately. But he's on at 7 a.m. Eastern, so I've been, serving as executive producer and helping with that. So I've been getting up really early. He's out in Aurora, Illinois. But so if I seem a little bit sluggish at the end of the day here, it's I had fallen into the pattern of like staying up and working until about 5 a.m. and then sleep until I'm ready to get up. But lately I've been getting up extra early. So this morning I was up and out the door. I had to go get my morning blast of caffeine at about 6:30 this morning, and it's so strange. And I know we have listeners across North America, but I know that at least on IPM Nation we have the largest concentration in Manchester and Boston, and it's like we just sailed right through the easiest winter I can remember probably ever. And then here we are in April, and it's like January outside. It snowed yesterday. So, I go out this morning. There's a few inches of snow on the ground. It's like barely more than 20 degrees. It's just so strange. It was, I swear to God, a few days ago, well, maybe more than maybe a week ago, that we had a day where it was 70 degrees. It was like, geez, it's barely spring and we're already getting into summer. It was great. And then this morning it was like the winter. It's just so odd. But anyway, a very, very exciting day. Like I said, a contested convention is something that those of us who are fascinated by politics have always wanted to see, and never thought realistically that it would happen. What's funny about this whole thing, too, well, there's many things that are funny about this whole situation, but with Trump becoming the front runner quickly and whatnot, and then racking up all these early primary victories, is my understanding is the whole reason, the geniuses that run the RNC, Reince Priebus and whoever else, they wanted to front load the Republican the Republican primary schedule this time around, because there was a thought that in 2012, by it taking as long as it did, because the primaries were kind of stretched out more, there was a thought that because of that, Romney, he didn't secure the nomination. He didn't secure the delegates needed, the 1237, as early as he could have if the primary had been more front-loaded, if the primary schedule had been more front-loaded, because, he was always kind of the presumptive nominee. He was always pretty much the front runner, sort of. I mean, well, actually 2012 was odd in that it kind of seemed like everybody on the Republican side got a turn as being the front runner. Newt Gingrich at one point was ahead. Even Herman Cain at one point was ahead of everybody else in the polls. But even through all that, hell, even Michelle Bachmann managed to win the Iowa straw poll for whatever that's worth, which is really nothing. But even through all of that, Romney was ultimately always the presumptive nominee. I don't think anyone seriously thought that he would lose. And when he really kind of got into trouble, like when it came down to him versus Gingrich, he just destroyed Gingrich, just outspended Gingrich like 5-1 in, I think Indiana was one of the primaries where Romney really kind of clinched it and just crushed Gingrich. But there was a thought that Romney would have done better in the general election if he had secured the Republican nomination earlier. Because one of the things that's interesting about this process is the longer, even when you have someone who is probably going to be the nominee, the longer it takes for them to actually get there, the more damaged they are by the time they get there because they're taking damage from their own side. In other words, for example, what we have right now is on the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee. I don't think anyone doubts that she's very likely to be the nominee, especially since Sanders really can win all the primaries he wants to, like he did very well in Wisconsin today, but they've already rigged the system. They're barely even trying to hide it. They've rigged the system with the delegates. But there is some pressure. In fact, Obama apparently has been pressuring Bernie Sanders. There was a story about that last week telling him, look, it's time to wrap this thing up and get out. And the reason is clearly because Hillary, the longer Sanders stays in, the more damaged Hillary is by the time you get to the general election. And so the Republicans decided that because they felt that that's what happened to Romney. Romney was so damaged by the time they got to the Republican convention. This time, we're going to front load them. We're going to try to knock out a lot of these primaries early, get them on the schedule, get them done early so that we have a nominee sooner. And it just completely blew up in their faces because along came Trump and he started winning all these primaries. And I'll tell you what, though, I have to hand it to the Republicans. I have been predicting for a long time it's going to be Trump versus Hillary, and it's going to be virtually impossible, as much as they threaten to do it, as much as the Republican establishment clearly desires to do it. It's going to be virtually impossible for them to find a way to actually take this away from Trump. And I clearly I was wrong. I didn't realize, well, first of all, the Trump campaign, they really recently seem to be taking some hits. I mean, they've got something like a 67 disapproval rate among women voters, for example, across the spectrum politically. Some of their poll numbers, Trump's poll numbers, his unfavorable ratings have gotten to be quite challenging for him. And he hasn't done himself any favors. He certainly didn't do himself any favors with his in that exchange with Chris Matthews over abortion, where he basically seemed to opt in on the idea that women, if abortion is outlawed, that women should face a criminal penalty and be sent to prison for getting an abortion. And then he walked that back, and now he's kind of doubled down on it. He's all over the place with this stuff. And he hasn't done himself any favors. And until recently, I've made the analogy, Trump is like Godzilla. He just wanders into the power lines and sparks fly and everything, but instead of it killing him, it just makes him stronger, and he just keeps getting stronger. It's like the more offensive, the more just unhinged the guy seems, the more incendiary his comments, the more he insults and offends people, the better he does. But that finally seems to have changed in the last couple of weeks. There finally is some backlash. And I don't know if it's his ego. I don't know if it's possible that there really is, not to get conspiratorial, but maybe there is a secret deal between him and the Clintons. I don't know. But he doesn't seem to be changing course. And he should have changed course by now anyway, if he really wants to be president, because once it was obvious that he was on his way to being the presumptive nominee for the Republicans, he should have pivoted. At one point, it looked like he was toward a general election strategy where he stops attacking everyone else and starts attacking solely Hillary and stops being so unhinged and incendiary needlessly. But no, he just keeps he can't stop doing his act, and he just keeps going, and he just keeps behaving this way, and it's really started to bite him. And the funny thing about that is, by not pivoting toward a general election strategy, he may have assured or may have destroyed any assurance that he's going to be the presumptive nominee, because he wasn't quite there yet to 1237. And now it looks like he's not going to get there. It looks like nobody's going to get there, and we're going to have a contested convention. I mean, this stuff with where he tweets out a side-by-side comparison of his wife next to Ted Cruz's wife, and talking about how much more attractive his wife is than Heidi Cruz, that kind of thing. I know the Trump apologists love that kind of stuff, and I don't know why. I don't know what's, I mean, unless you're 14 years old, I don't know why that would impress you or why you would be proud of that kind of behavior. But the Trump supporters love this kind of stuff. But there are fewer and fewer Trump supporters, it would seem. How can women possibly, of course his unfavorables are extremely high with women. How can women possibly, even if they agree with him on everything? I mean, this guy taking shots at Ted Cruz's wife and tweeting out side-by-side photographic comparisons of Heidi Cruz and, how do you say, is it I don't even remember how you pronounce Trump's wife's name. Melania something? I mean, that's just, it's so low rent, and it's like he's sabotaging himself. So he may have successfully sabotaged himself, because he very well now may not be the nominee. Wisconsin clearly has not reacted well. And the thing is, so if it's Trump versus Cruz, well, Cruz has even less of a chance of getting to 1237 than Trump, obviously, because Cruz is so far behind. But really, it's a protest vote, the way I see it. They're not really voting for Ted Cruz. Nobody really wants Cruz to be the nominee, not much more than they want Trump to, because Cruz can't win in a general election. But it's clearly a protest, a backlash against Trump. There's an article on Politico kind of breaking this down a little further. So when we come back from the break, because we're up against another break already, we'll dive into that a little bit, and we'll look at also Bernie's victory over Hillary in Wisconsin. So plenty more to get to tonight. We're only halfway there. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Matt Connarton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connarton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connarton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on IPM Nation 2 and OTR FM, the premium channel on the Ohm Times Radio Network. Let's dig in a little bit more on this. This will give us some numbers. This article here, it says, Cruz wallops Trump, setting up delegate brawl. The Texas senator's big win in Wisconsin pushes the GOP race closer to a contested convention. And this is up on Politico.com. So this will offer us some math. Ted Cruz scored a decisive victory in Wisconsin on Tuesday, defeating Donald Trump and seizing most of the state's 42 delegates in a win that boosted the odds of a historic contested convention this summer. Cruz's margin of victory was large enough that 3 television networks called the contest soon after the polls closed. With more than half of precincts reporting, the Associated Press showed Cruz with more than 50% of the vote compared to just over 32% for Trump. John Kasich lagged far behind with roughly 14%. Cruz crushed Trump in the heavily GOP Milwaukee suburbs, leading Waukesha County by nearly 40 percentage points, with nearly 90% of the vote counted there. Wow, that's huge. The loss for Trump marked only the second time in the nominating contest, and the first since Iowa, that the Manhattan businessman suffered an election day without winning a state. In an upbeat victory speech in Milwaukee, Cruz hailed the result as a turning point in the 2016 campaign that would cascade across the remaining states. Cruz's Wisconsin win was thorough. Exit polls showed him winning Republicans of every age, every level of education, and every level of income. His strongest base was very conservative voters, which Cruz carried with nearly 2/3 of the vote. By the way, just a quick sidebar on that. I was listening to a little bit of Laura Ingraham today while I was driving, and she was talking about how she can't understand for the life of her why, and I don't think she's really picked a horse in this race, but she can't figure out for the life of her why so many Republicans, so many conservative Republicans are going for Trump when there's a guy like Ted Cruz who clearly is one of them and reflects their values and positions and so forth. And I don't think anyone doubts that Ted Cruz is a true conservative, where a lot of people have these doubts about Trump. But she doesn't understand why so many conservatives are just, even though you would think Cruz would be their guy, they love Trump. I mean, I think a lot of them just love his, this is my take on it, I think a lot of them just, they love his bluster, and they think they think some of the caveman rhetoric is appealing. I don't know, but it's interesting to see that it looks like in Wisconsin that some of these conservatives are saying, no, we're going to go with the guy who we think is the true conservative, and that clearly is Ted Cruz. All right, getting back to this. As significantly for the states to follow, Cruz turned in his strongest performance to date among non-evangelicals, at least among states that had exit polls, beating Trump in that group 43% to 35%. Wisconsin, Cruz said, has lit a candle guiding the way forward. Whether that's true won't be clear until the coming weeks, but what was clear Tuesday is that Cruz had handed Trump his most consequential defeat since the Iowa caucuses and made the frontrunner's path to the 1,237 delegates he needs even steeper. Trump now this is the important part. Trump now must win nearly 70% of the remaining delegates to avert a convention floor fight that he has already said could cause riots. Interestingly, Cruz, who only days ago insisted he was still trying to win the nomination outright, despite that being a mathematical near impossibility, embraced the concept of a floor fight this summer in his most overt way yet. Cruz said, quote, either before Cleveland or at the convention in Cleveland, together we will win a majority of the delegates and together we will beat Hillary Clinton in November, unquote. Trump chose not to deliver remarks after his bruising loss. Oh, that surprises me. He's usually so good at being gracious. But his campaign issued a fiery statement slamming Cruz and his allies. Yes, no being gracious here. No congratulating the winner. Okay, the statement said, quote, Lion Ted Cruz had the governor of Wisconsin, many conservative talk radio show hosts, and the entire party apparatus behind him. Ted Cruz is worse than a puppet. He is a Trojan horse being used by the party bosses attempting to steal the nomination from Mr. Trump, unquote. Well, okay, let's look at that statement for a moment. No, he's no Trojan horse. It is obvious what the Republican establishment is trying to do. They're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to be coy about it. Not anymore. Not now. Look, now that this has happened, now that we've gotten through Wisconsin and this has happened, and it makes Trump's goal of getting to 1237 so very difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. And now that his sort of veneer of inevitability has been so thoroughly damaged, there need not be any more sort of backroom secret meetings. You know, they can start to be pretty open about this, about what they're planning to do. Reince Priebus probably feels liberated by this because, you know, now he can openly speak about a contested convention without sounding like he's plotting against Trump. He can just put it out there. This is what's going to happen. And, you know, I mean, I think obviously in his position as head of the Republican National Committee, I don't think he's supposed to state who he would like or who he would prefer not be the nominee, but he really doesn't have to you know, be coy at this point and try to be, you know, somewhat secretive about what they're going to try to do at the convention. Let's see, back to this. Trump's loss was also a major victory for the Stop Trump constellation of super PACs that had invested millions in the state on television ads and must still prove to deep-pocketed donors that their movement is not a lost cause. Club for Growth Action President David McIntosh, whose group paid for $1 million in Wisconsin ads, issued a statement immediately after Cruz won, calling Wisconsin, quote, a major pivot point in the GOP race away from Donald Trump and toward Ted Cruz, unquote. As the race consolidated, Cruz has shown increasing strength. He was on pace to top 50% in Wisconsin and boasted on stage of raising $2 million on Tuesday, refueling a war chest likely to be drained by New York's pricey media market in 2 weeks. Yes, we have the New York primary coming up. Heading into Tuesday's vote, Trump had secured 737 of the 1237 delegates needed to clinch the GOP nomination outright, while Cruz trailed badly with 475 delegates, and Kasich had already been mathematically eliminated from winning the nomination outright with only 143 delegates. It was not immediately clear how many of Wisconsin's 42 delegates Cruz would win, though he scored 18 for the statewide victory and will win 3 apiece for each of the 8 congressional districts in the state that he carries. Trump's strength in some of Wisconsin's more rural reaches had him competing to score as many as half a dozen delegates or more, but in the face of impending defeat, Trump's team had tried to downplay expectations in the state. There's more to this article, but there's a lot more to it if you want to check it out. It is up on Politico. But I want to mention something, too. You know, John Kasich is mentioned in this article, and obviously he's already been eliminated mathematically, but he hasn't dropped out. And I think he's been smart not to drop out. because even though all he could win was Ohio, when it comes to a contested convention, Kasich actually could yet be the nominee, as unlikely as it seems in terms of his inability to win primaries. And I have said all along, of the Republican field, I find John Kasich to be the least repulsive. And I've also said all along, of the Republican field, and I think there's polling data that shows this, John Kasich would have the best chance of beating Hillary Clinton in the general election. So as much as apparently nobody gets excited about John Kasich, he would be a phenomenal Republican nominee. So I think he's been smart to hang in there. But what if it's somebody who isn't even running? Because it's not going to be Ted Cruz. All Ted Cruz is doing now is, he is doing the bidding of the establishment, which is funny because he's an anti-establishment candidate himself. Many in his own party despise him. He's loathed in the Senate by his own party. And yet, he's basically doing the establishment's bidding because he's right now is making sure he's the guy making sure that Trump doesn't get to 1237. So I don't know what Cruz gets out of this. Maybe nothing. Maybe it's just he just wants to stop Trump, and maybe it's personal to him at this point. He went after the way Trump went after Cruz's wife, Heidi, which I think is unfair and disgusting. And I've met Heidi Cruz. We actually on another political show that I do, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades with Gary Hopper, we had Heidi Cruz on the show before the New Hampshire primary. Couldn't get Ted, but we did have Heidi on the show, and she seemed very nice, and I think that I think that Trump picking on her really cost him, but I also think that it probably really motivated Cruz. And I would not be surprised too if part of the reason why Cruz has been able to raise the money that he has relatively quickly and replenish that campaign war chest, I would not be surprised if some of that was because of Trump's attack on Heidi Cruz. Because I wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some chivalry going on where some Republican donors just thought, look at this scumbag. This is a new low. We have to take him down. And so they got behind Ted Cruz. Maybe not. I might be overthinking it, but it's an interesting thing to speculate about. When we come back, let's look at what happened on the Democratic side in Wisconsin today. Again, not that that's going to matter because they've already decided no matter what, Hillary's going to get the lion's share of the delegates. Ugh. All right. We'll be back. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
The Real Conscious Connection. Ohm Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Ohm Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Ohm Times endeavor. Host your show with Ohm Times Radio Network.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on Ohm Times Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
As difficult as it is to believe, There are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed as we cruise into our final segment tonight on this Tuesday evening. A couple reminders before we finish up tonight. Of course, I did mention at the top of the show, if you didn't hear it yet, last night's interview with Ed Opperman, host of the Opperman Report, one of the many new shows that we've been adding to the IPM Nation roster. Ed was with me for the full hour last night on IPM Nation 2, and that is available at ipmnation.com/MCU Live. Very, very interesting conversation, so I encourage everyone to check it out. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, I will be on Ward 13 with John Hopwood talking about the Panama Papers, this other big story that just broke. We're going to be discussing that with a professor from Mexico City. And then, of course, at 2 p.m. Eastern, the television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. And that can all be viewed on IPM Nation. So that's all tomorrow. And, of course, if you don't get to see the show live, because they are in the afternoon, we do get them up and available on our YouTube channel, our IPM Nation YouTube channel, usually by about 9 p.m. Eastern. So you can, at that point, watch them at your leisure. Let's see. We talked about what's going on the Republican side. Let's take a look at I got to find it here. Sanders blows by Clinton in Wisconsin. This is also up on Politico. It says here he's won. I didn't realize this. He's won 7 of the past 8 contests, according to this article by Nick Gass on Politico. But will it matter in terms of the delegates? Let's see. It says here Bernie Sanders scored a decisive victory in the Wisconsin Democratic primary Tuesday night, racking up his 7th victory in 8 contests against Hillary Clinton as the race barrels toward a critical showdown in New York. Sanders' victory kicked off a critical 2-week stretch for the Vermont senator, who is trying to show he can become a genuine threat to topple the front runner in the home stretch of the presidential primary and not merely dog Clinton until the July convention in Philadelphia. Sanders relished the win at a rally in Laramie, Wyoming, ahead of the state's Saturday caucuses, telling supporters he was written off as a fringe candidacy when he launched his campaign 11 months ago. Quote, with our victory tonight in Wisconsin, we have now won 7 out of 8 of the last caucuses and primaries, and we have won almost all of them with overwhelming landslide numbers. What momentum is about is that at a time in contemporary politics when every major candidate has a super PAC, we have said no to the super PACs, said no to the billionaires who fund those super PACs, unquote. With about 40% of the votes counted, Sanders led Clinton 54 to 46%. The Associated Press called the race shortly after the polls closed. Clinton congratulated Sanders in a tweet, but did not speak publicly after the race was called. She tweeted, though, quote, congrats to @Bernie Sanders on winning Wisconsin. To all the voters and volunteers who poured your hearts into this campaign, forward, unquote. Fresh off a string of blowout wins across the West, Wisconsin was largely seen as tailor-made for Sanders. After Saturday's Wyoming caucuses, the race shifts to New York, a delegate-rich state where both campaigns are playing to win. By the way, just a sidebar about New York, that'll be particularly interesting because on the one hand, you've got the guy with the Brooklyn accent, right? I mean, he's been in Vermont for decades, but it's obvious by hearing him talk where he grew up. And I wonder how much that will help him. But then on the other hand, you've got Hillary Clinton, who at one time was a senator from New York. So, or a senator for New York. I mean, she basically moved to New York specifically to run for the Senate, but then she won defeating Rick Lazio. People tried to, well, certainly the Lazio campaign tried to tag her as being a carpetbagger, which is clearly what she was doing, but she won anyway. It's just another step in her political career. Let's see. The triumph in Wisconsin is likely to give the Brooklyn-born candidate another burst of momentum heading into the April 19th primary in New York, where he has a chance to reset the race if he can upset Clinton in the state she represented for 8 years in the Senate. Don't tell Clinton, Sanders joked, but, quote, I believe we have a chance to win New York and a lot of delegates in that state, unquote. Clinton's campaign has been aggressively lowering expectations in Wisconsin. Allies of the Democratic frontrunner insisted a defeat would not materially damage Clinton, given her strong lead on Sanders. She's ahead by roughly 230 delegates, or 600, including superdelegates. Oh, my God. Think about that for a minute. Think about how they've manipulated the system. This is why I was saying, after what happened in New Hampshire, Sanders won New Hampshire decisively, but I think they ended up coming out with the same number of delegates. It's like, and that's why I've been saying, remember, every vote counts, except when it doesn't. What does this say to people who feel disenfranchised because they feel like their vote doesn't count? Well, actually, in many cases, they're right. If you're a Democrat and you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, the Democratic National Committee clearly has told you it's nice that you support Senator Sanders, but your vote doesn't count. So, sorry, too bad. I mean, again, look at these numbers. I'm not great at math, but she's ahead by roughly 230 delegates. But if you include the super delegates, she's ahead by 600. So if that's not a rigged system, I don't know what is. Wisconsin awards its 86 pledged delegates on a proportional basis, which ensures neither candidate will net a large delegate haul. Quote, Wisconsin is a state that favors him. It is much less diverse than most of the states we compete in Democratic primaries. It's got a lower population of African Americans, a very small population of Latinos, unquote. Clinton's chief pollster and strategist Joel Benenson told MSNBC on Monday, setting the bar for expectations for Tuesday night. Yeah, so they knew they were going to lose there, and they were trying to kind of lower expectations. Clinton's campaign, Benenson remarked, has done very well in building a diverse coalition, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. There's more to this article. It's up on Politico. Sanders blows by Clinton in Wisconsin. It would be very interesting. It will be very interesting to see if – I didn't realize, like I said, that he had won 7 of the last 8 primaries and caucuses. So the math is against him no matter what, because no matter how much he wins, it doesn't matter. And the reason the Democrats use superdelegates is because to make sure that an establishment candidate wins, just like the Republicans are going to do with their contested convention. They're going to make sure an establishment candidate wins. And they have, this is one of the problems, one of the many problems with the two-party system, and why I support independence as much as possible. Because something that people forget, and we talk about this on the television show and on John Hopwood's show, Ward 13, because John likes to point this out, is that the two parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party, these are private organizations. They can do whatever they want to. They can. It's not like, see, people, I think that these two organizations are somehow a part of the government or something. They're not. They're not. They are private organizations and they can do what they want, which means, in theory, if one party wanted to say, if one party had a nominee that got, way past the minimum number of delegates needed and all these votes and whatnot, but the party apparatus, the people who actually run the committee of that party, if they decided, no, we don't want this person, even though they overwhelmingly and clearly are the winner, they could just change the rules. They can do whatever they want to. It wouldn't be illegal. I mean, I think it would be immoral and unethical, but we're talking about politics. But it wouldn't be illegal. It's not like they couldn't do it. It's not like it would violate the Constitution somehow. There are no political parties in the Constitution. In fact, a couple of the founding fathers warned very specifically about the danger of having political parties and political factions. And, of course, they were quite prophetic in that. So these organizations can do whatever they want, ultimately. But they have it rigged. They have control of the system, and they have it rigged. And they have it rigged to make sure that nobody else can get in, or at least not get in easily. I mean, obviously, if there's enough public outcry, someone can get in. I mean, look at what happened in '92 with Ross Perot. Which reminds me, I'm trying to look up right now because I voted for Gary Johnson last time, and there was a poll recently that showed him at 11% nationally, which I thought was pretty interesting. Like I said, I try to support independence as much as possible. I have endorsed Daryl W. Perry for the Libertarian nomination, and that's who I'm supporting. But if he fails to win the nomination, and I mean, Gary Johnson obviously is a big name as a former Republican. He's pretty well known. He was a Republican when he was governor of New Mexico. So most likely. Yeah, see, there's an article here on oppositionnews.org. It says Libertarian poll shows Gary Johnson with huge lead. So he most likely, again, and this is a fairly recent article, so he most likely will be the nominee. According to this poll, it says Daryl Perry, 3%. Like I said, that's my candidate. He has a show on IPM Nation, Peace, Love, Liberty, that we carry. Gary Johnson at 68%. The next person, next closest to Gary Johnson, according to this poll, is Austin Peterson at 12%. I hear that name a lot, but John McAfee, he's the McAfee virus software guy. According to this poll, he's tied with Daryl W. Perry at 3%. But, I mean, he's another big name, but there's a guy. So Gary Johnson's first and Austin Peterson. Third is Steve Kerbel at 7%. I don't even know who that is. That's a name I haven't heard. But anyway, no matter. We are out of time. So thank you all for listening tonight. Please join me tomorrow night for the television edition of Unleashed at 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you can, tune in the hour before that at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'll be on Ward 13 with John Hopwood. You can see it all on IPM Nation. And I will be back with another live radio show Thursday night. Good night, everybody.